Hey, what's up everybody? This is Joshua Casper. I'm here with Plugin Boutique, and today we're going to check out the Helper series by WA Productions. The Helper series are 3 different plugins that are really streamlined to help you get in and get cracking with 3 different types of effects. There's the Equalizer, the Saturator, and the Transient shaper. We're going to use each one of these in a different spot on this track and see what we can't do to make it a little bit bigger and a little bit nastier. So let's just go ahead and listen to the track and then go ahead and start adding some of these helper units to it. So as you can tell, it's already pretty beefy, it's already pretty big, but we can make it a little bit better with a little bit of help from the helper units. So what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and expand my drum rack here inside Ableton Live and take the helper transient shaper and drop it on the kick/sub. Go ahead and solo that. Let's go ahead and listen to it with and without the helper on its stock default setting. Okay, so not much is happening, and that's because the transient value is right there at 0. There's not going to be any transients being shaped by the plugin at this moment. However, if I go ahead and pull it up while the kick is playing, we'll be able to hear the transients being added, and you'll hear a lot more snappy kick drum, or at least that snappy, punchy part will get a lot more present in the mix. And as we really crank the unit there, it started to get a little bit distorted on the subby tail end. But usually with your transient shaper, you don't want to add too much. You just want to add a little bit more punch so it stands out in the mix a little bit better. Now, one of the really cool things about the helper unit from WA Productions is the attack versus the release. So I can shape the transient, that first transient where the punchiness happens, or I can shape the release of the kick instead. So let's see what that sounds like. So there you can see that the release is getting bigger and beefier, and when I hit the attack, that snappy punchy part is what's getting affected more. So I'm actually going to pull it down. I'm going to leave it on attack for now. And one other thing that's really cool about all of the helper units is the fact that you can listen to the difference, which is going to be what's being added to the sound by the unit itself. So let's go ahead and check that out. So that difference right there, that's the addition of sound being added or created by the helper unit itself. And all 3 of the helper units have that, and I think that's a really good addition. Another really cool thing is that you can quickly add it to the full stereo field, just the mid audio, the side audio, the left or the right audio independently as well. So you can really get in and start dialing in the sound that you're looking for depending on what you're trying to do. Now for this transient shaper right here on the kick drum, I'm going to leave it on stereo and leave it on the attack section because I'm really just looking for a little bit more punch right there, and we should be good to go. Great. So let's go ahead and check out the Saturator unit, and what I'm going to do is put that on that brass sample. So if I go ahead and solo that now. And here with the saturation unit, we have tape saturation or tube saturation. Now, saturation is a type of distortion that adds harmonics to the upper frequencies of the sound. And what it does is creates a warm, almost vintage feel to whatever you're running it through. And I think it sits really nice well with these brass stabs because while they're already pretty beefy, I felt like the higher end of the spectrum could be a little bit brighter and feel a little bit more warm. So using the helper unit here is really working out well. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on effect, and what I'm actually going to do is flip through the different ways we can apply it to the signal and see if I find one that sounds a little bit better than just leaving it on stereo. I'm actually going to leave it on mid because it's really actually making the sound a little bit wider, and I think that's really good, and it's going to help it sit better within the mix because the brass has a little bit of sub end on it, and so does that kick, and that kick is really large, and I really want that to be the kind of the focus and have this brass be a little bit of a an icing on the cake, if you will. So let me go ahead and unsolo the track and listen to what we have so far. So while I was A-Bing that, can't you hear, if you're listening to headphones on some decent monitors, hopefully you could hear how that brass was being pushed out to the side. And I think that's just working really well. And it's definitely sounding a lot better. It's sounding a lot larger and a lot wider. So it definitely has, quote unquote, helped me in this situation. And the final module is the EQ module. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop that on this pluck right here. Go ahead and solo that down. So here I have the helper EQ. And if we go ahead and listen, it starts off with a high pass at about 1,000 hertz there, and we can obviously change that if we wanted to. And you notice that these other two knobs are actually grayed out right now, and that's because that's going to depend on the type of filter you're using. And the types of filters that we have are high pass, low pass, high shelf. We can see that we have gain and quality now. Low shelf, gain and quality remain. Peak, which is going to be your peak type filter, and then we're back to high pass. And again, we have the effect complete with the difference toggle switch right there, and just like the other units, stereo, mid, side, left, and right. So let's go ahead and see if we can make the sound a little bit better. And what I'm looking to do is kind of roll off some of that low ends to make room again for that brass and this Voc lead right here. So applying that filter to the mid signal while leaving the side signal unaffected is, again, making it sound wider. And I think that's going to leave a little bit of room for this Voc lead over here. So if I solo that too and we listen to them together. So hopefully you heard, again, with the A-B there, that the mid frequencies have been shaved down, but the side frequencies have been left alone, which gives more room for that Voc lead, which is kind of centered. And we can still hear the pluck, and it actually sounds more bright, even though we've actually trimmed down some of the gain from the overall signal. And that's very, very useful, especially when you're getting into mixing and mastering. Things like this are going to be really useful, and the fact that the helper does that really quickly and really easily, and you can A-B and switch through the different modes with just a click of the button without having to do too much is a big plus in my book. So let's go ahead and listen to the whole track together, and hopefully we have a better sound. Yep, that sounded pretty large, and the helpers have seemed to help. Anyway, the helpers from WA Productions are available in Plugin Boutique right now. Highly suggest going to check it out. I hope you learned something. We'll see you next time.